southwest of Berlin, hidden within a forest of tall birch and pine trees, lies a place that time has abandoned. Locals call it Beelitz-Heilstätten, a hospital that once promised healing, but became a home for the forgotten. It was built in 1898, a grand medical complex meant to treat tuberculosis. Thousands came here with hope, believing the fresh forest air could save them. But as decades passed, the air turned thick with something else, the scent of sickness, and eventually, death. When the First World War erupted, Beelitz transformed from a place of healing into a military hospital. Wounded soldiers filled its corridors, their cries echoing through the long tiled halls. Among them, in 1916, was a young Austrian corporal, shot in the leg, quiet, intense. His name was Adolf Hitler. He recovered here, surrounded by pain and despair. Some say his hatred was born in these very walls. By the time the Second World War arrived, Beelitz had already seen more death than most cities. It was no longer just a hospital. It was a waiting room for the grave. The staff was small, the nights endless, and rumors began to spread. People whispered that the dead were not resting. Among the remaining nurses was Anna Weiss, a woman of 26, pale, serious, and devoted. She had been assigned to Ward 5, the East Wing. Her duty was to care for soldiers with severe injuries, men who often didn't last the night. But Anna's diary revealed something else. It wasn't the screams that haunted her, nor the silence that followed. It was the presence, the sense that someone was watching when no one was there. In one of her final entries, she wrote, "Every night, I hear footsteps in the empty rooms. The lamps flicker, then die. And when I turn around, the air moves, as if someone had just passed behind me." Outside, bombs shook the earth. Inside, the hospital seemed to breathe on its own. The nurses prayed. The patients stopped talking. They simply stared into the darkness. Then, one cold morning, a soldier disappeared. His bed was soaked in blood, and the blanket had been dragged toward the basement door. The prints in the dust stopped halfway down the stairs. The others refused to go any further. After that day, they began to hear noises, slow, rhythmic tapping from below. 3 knocks every night, just before dawn. The basement was sealed, but the sound never stopped. Anna became quieter. Her colleagues said she looked pale, distracted. Sometimes she was seen walking the halls at night, whispering names no one recognized. And then, she too vanished. The following morning, her lantern was found still burning beside an empty bed. Her uniform hung neatly on a chair, but there was no trace of her. When the Soviet army arrived in 1945, they took control of Beelitz. The hospital once again filled with soldiers, this time Russian voices echoing through the ruins. But even they spoke of strange things. No one wanted to sleep on the lower floors. At night, guards reported hearing a woman crying softly in the East Wing, a voice that begged in German, repeating the same words over and over. "Hilf mir, bitte. Help me, please." The commander ordered the basement to be sealed with concrete, but the tapping continued, muffled now, as if from inside the walls. Over the years, the hospital rotted. The walls peeled, nature began to crawl through the windows, and the world forgot about Beelitz-Heilstätten. But in the quiet of the forest, some still swore they heard faint cries when the wind passed through. Those who dared to visit said the air inside felt heavy, like it was filled with memories. The smell of disinfectant mixed with dust and rust. Some claimed to see a flicker of light moving through the corridors, like a lantern swaying in the dark. They say the east wing still echoes at night, even though no one walks there anymore. And if you listen long enough, you can almost hear the tapping. 3 slow knocks, and then a whisper. I'm still here. Decades passed. The forest grew thicker, swallowing the ruins piece by piece. Beelitz-Heilstätten became a ghost story, a warning whispered among locals. They said the place was cursed, that the souls of the soldiers and the nurse still lingered, trapped beneath the concrete. But time has a strange way of inviting curiosity. In the early 2010s, urban explorers began to talk about the site online. Photographers, thrill seekers, and so-called ghost hunters all wanted to see if the legends were true. In 2013, 3 friends, Marcus, Lena, and Tobias, arrived at Beelitz just before midnight. They brought cameras, flashlights, and a small recorder. They planned to spend one night inside and capture whatever they could find. They never imagined that the hospital might be waiting for them. The air was cold and wet. The windows were shattered, and the moonlight leaked in like silver fog. The floor was covered in broken glass and medical charts too old to touch. The walls were lined with peeling paint, thick as dead skin. Marcus led the way, his camera blinking red in the dark. He spoke quietly into the microphone, his voice trembling more from excitement than fear. He said they were in Building 7, the same east wing where patients once lay dying. As they moved through the corridor, Lena stopped. She said she smelled something strange, damp earth, as if someone had just dug a grave. The others laughed, but Marcus frowned. He turned his light toward the floor and saw footprints, bare feet, small, leading down the hall. At the end of the corridor stood a heavy door with rusted hinges. Marcus reached for it, but the moment his hand touched the handle, the air shifted. The silence became thicker, almost solid. He hesitated, then pushed the door open. Beyond it was a staircase leading down, the basement. Tobias protested, saying it was dangerous, that the floor could collapse. But Marcus was determined. He said they'd only stay for a few minutes. He wanted one good shot, proof that something still lived down there. They descended slowly. Each step echoed louder than it should have. The air grew colder. The smell of mold mixed with something metallic. Iron, maybe blood. At the bottom of the stairs, they found an empty corridor. Old pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water. The walls were covered in markings, crosses scratched into the plaster, and then, carved deep into the concrete, a single name, Anna. Lena's voice shook. She said they should leave. Marcus pointed his camera forward and whispered, "Just one more room." They entered what looked like an old surgical chamber. A broken gurney lay in the center, rusted instruments scattered around it. And in the corner, half buried in dust, was an old lantern. Its glass was cracked, but inside, there was still a bit of wax, burned to the base. Marcus knelt to take a closer look. As he touched it, the camera picked up a faint sound, a woman's voice, whispering something too quiet to understand. He froze. The others didn't hear it. Only he did. He lifted the lantern, and for a moment, he swore it felt warm. Then the flashlight flickered. Darkness swallowed the room. When the light came back, Lena was gone. Tobias called her name, shouting down the hall. The only answer was the echo of his own voice. Marcus spun the camera around, shaking. He caught a glimpse, just for a second, of a figure standing behind the gurney. A woman, dressed in a nurse's uniform, her face hidden by her hair. He dropped the camera. The screen went black. Hours later, when police arrived, they found only Tobias outside, crying near the gate. He was in shock, unable to explain what happened. He said they heard a voice telling them to stay. That Lena followed it, and Marcus tried to bring her back. Then, the door slammed shut behind them. Search teams went through the hospital for 2 days. They never found the other two, but they did find Marcus's camera near the basement stairs. The final recording was only 20 seconds long. At first, it's just static. Then, a faint voice whispers in German, "Bleib hier." Stay here. A pause. Then, breathing. And finally, 3 slow knocks. The authorities sealed the basement again. Officially, the case was closed. Accidental disappearance. But locals said the police refused to stay after dark. They claimed the officers came out pale, trembling, one of them muttering the same words, "She touched my shoulder. She was cold." Years passed again, but Beelitz never stayed silent. Security guards reported seeing flickering lights in the East Wing, long after power had been cut. Tourists on ghost tours claimed to hear a woman humming. Even during the day, the air inside felt colder than outside, like the building itself was holding its breath. Some said the hospital had become a kind of echo chamber, replaying the last moments of those who died there. Others believed something darker remained, something that fed on the fear of those who entered. Today, Beelitz-Heilstätten stands partly restored. A few of its buildings have been turned into museums and tourist attractions. But Building 7, the East Wing, remains closed to the public. The official reason? Structural instability. Yet everyone knows the truth. No one wants to work there after sundown. No cameras function properly inside. And those who sneak in after dark often return. Different, quiet, distracted, as if they left something behind or brought something out. In 2021, a traveler posted a video claiming to have spent the night in Beelitz. He filmed himself walking through the corridors at 3 a.m., whispering about the strange noises he heard. At the end of the clip, his flashlight catches something in the corner. A reflection. Two pale eyes staring from the darkness. The video cuts to black. The account was deleted the next day. To this day, no one knows how many people have vanished inside those walls. The forest keeps its secrets. The hospital keeps its dead. And sometimes, on cold nights, when the wind blows through the trees, you can still hear the faint echo of 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate, patient. They say if you ever hear it, you must not answer. Because if you do, you'll never stop hearing it again. And somewhere, deep beneath the concrete, a woman still waits, the nurse who never left. Her lantern forever burning in the dark. "I'm still here," she whispers. "Don't turn off the light."